So how do you plan to ensure that when the city expands or invests in new infrastructure or amenities, it does so in a way that doesn't drive up costs for existing residents?
For most of the history of the development of our city, especially over the last 3 decades, almost every new residential development ended up adding costs to existing Edmontonians, because for decades, the city didn't have a certain set of requirements to make sure that that growth was better paying for itself. And there's a few reasons for that. There was actually provincial legislation that restricted how much the city can collect in what's called an off-site levy. So the cities for many decades could collect the cost of the roads and the utility infrastructure, but that was pretty much it. Fire hall, rec center, library, all of those were not something that could be collected through the development of a new area. There were some changes back in between 2015 and 2019 that started to allow municipalities to collect a bit more. And then those rules were subsequently additionally changed. So there's limitations of what the city can legally recover and cost. But all of that said, I will say that so it didn't get much attention, and I wish it did, but earlier this year, there was a neighborhood structure plan. And so what that is it's a plan for an undeveloped part of the city and on the south side. And this was the first neighborhood structure plan that when it came forward, there's a cost analysis of all new neighborhoods to add up how much you get in property taxes, how much the infrastructure costs, and it determines sort of the viability of that. This was the first neighborhood that actually pays for itself in the property taxes that we're getting. So we now have a bit of a framework. So what we need to make sure is that any new neighborhood that will get built needs to have a similar financial viability. The city cannot be the ones, the Edmontonians cannot be the ones making up the cost difference of those new neighborhoods, because that is the single biggest driver of property taxes. So the outward expansion of our city has been the single biggest driver of our property taxes. And we made a decision back in 2020 that we will not continue to annex land. We will not expand our boundaries. Essentially, we wanted to stop the bleeding of multiple decades of decisions that have added cost to our property taxes year after year after year. And so I'm glad that exists now. We have a framework that can work in other new neighborhoods, but we have to also, again, this is part of being honest about the budget. When you've allowed this to go on for 3 decades, we're going to be playing catch up for a while now. So there's still going to be another couple of, I would say probably another 10, 15, 20 years where there's neighborhoods that are under development today that were approved under an old set of rules that we're going to have to pay for to bring in those services and that infrastructure. So it's just the reality of how the city's developed.